Sharing with you in this video how to stop allowing your external environment and circumstances to define who you are. Because the truth is that a lot of us, we walk through life and what we do is we unconsciously allow our environment to define who we are. Now, it might seem like a little bit of a paradox because it's the whole nature versus nurture debate. Which one is it? Are you a product of your environment, or is your environment a product of you? Which one is it? Let's talk about that in this video so that you can really understand how to stop allowing the environment to dictate who you are, and then you can start to decide who you actually want to be instead. And so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to stop allowing your external environment and circumstances to define who you are is to understand that, first of all, from one perspective, one way to look at it is that you are not a product of your environment. You are not. Unless there's unconscious identification with thought, like if you're unconsciously attached to your thinking, well, then that is the case that you kind of are a product of your environment in a way. But from one perspective, you absolutely are not a product of your environment. So think about it like this. You definitely are a product of your environment, maybe from the first stages of your life, maybe from like 0 to 18 or 0 to 20, 0 to 19. Probably not that late, actually. At some point, just think back. You become a little bit more conscious. You become a little bit more aware. Technically, science looks at it from the perspective that your brain is still consciously developing up until you're really 25 years old. You're not really a fully independent human unless you're kind of fully 25, really. Now, from a consciousness perspective, it kind of comes a point in consciousness where you realize that you can actually think for yourself. You don't need to be a product of your environment. So I think that one of the most powerful things that we can do is start to embody this concept just a little bit more, which is really, I think, much more than a concept, because although it may seem like a concept as I'm explaining it, I think that the key truth to remember is that you can realize that you're not a product of your environment. And that's a realization. So what is a realization? A realization is that you realize something that's already true, that has always been the case, but you just didn't really realize it before. So I'm sorry to use the same definition in the answer. It's becoming conscious of something that was already there that you weren't conscious of before. It's becoming conscious of something that was there, but you just didn't have awareness of it. So really, I think that the most important thing to do here is to walk through our life with a sense of awareness that it is the case that you are not your thoughts, you're not your environment, whatever conditioning that you've lived up until this point, up until 20 years old. Maybe you used to be a product of your environment. So let's just think about that for a second. Maybe you used to be a product of your environment, but now you're at the point where you don't need to be allowing, the past version of who you are to define your identity anymore. You can let go of that old version of yourself and start to be who it is that you actually want. So that old version of yourself no longer needs to define you. You no longer need to be in alignment with the product of your environment that you've been in alignment with for however long in your life, 15, 20 years, whatever the case might be. You can simply choose a different identity because now you have awareness. And really, 90% of this entire process is consciousness. It's awareness. So when you start to realize that you are creating spaciousness between you and your environment and the beliefs that you've created in your life up until that point of maybe 15, 18, there's going to come a point where you realize, wait a second, I'm actually acting in alignment with my environment right now. It's not even me, really. Where do my thoughts even come from? I got all of them from my environment. So when we start to realize this, we can start to realize that that's the unconscious identification with the thought forms, with the ideas, with the concepts. Now we need to step away from that and realize that you can choose the identity that you prefer for yourself, and your environment doesn't need to dictate your life. It can have a lot of influence on your life. It can still have an impact on your life, but you can start to become who you want to be. And this isn't about anger or resentment or holding any sort of animosity or negativity towards the external world or the conditioning that got you to the point that you are in your life right now. However you got to the point where you are right now, you don't need to hold any resentment or anger. You can appreciate it and forgive any negativity that happened to you and appreciate all the amazing things and simply let go of all the things in your life that do not resonate for you. Any beliefs that you hold, any ideas or concepts that you're still acting in alignment with as you're watching this video, I highly invite and encourage you just to simply choose to let those go in this present moment right now, simply because you do not need to allow any idea or belief system that doesn't resonate for you to define who you are. It is just not the case. So now that you understand this and you're remembering this, which I believe that we all know this at a deep level, but we simply forget sometimes, is just simply to remember that your environment doesn't need to dictate your identity any longer. Now, the second thing that I want to share with you in this video is to understand that what does this mean? It means that you create your purpose from within. See, I think that a lot of people, what they really do is they try to look for their purpose like out there in the world. They try to find it somewhere out there. And I think that it is the case that you're going to have a hard time finding your purpose out there, because if you keep looking for your purpose out there, wherever it might be, in whatever context, I'm not going to get too specific right now, but in whatever context that you find yourself looking for your purpose out there, I'm going to tell you right now that for me personally, and I think that for other people, they might find this to be similar, that you're going to find it to be the case that you lose a sense of empowerment when you do this. You lose a sense of free will when you do this, because you feel like you're giving away your power, and quite literally you are. Because if all your energy is projected in the external and you're looking for a purpose out there, you're literally giving away your power. Now, what do I mean by power? That's a very blatant term that, a random term that you might hear in videos, like what is power? Like giving away your power. Power to me, in the way that I'm using it, can be synonymous for consciousness and awareness and just simply attention. Just attention. See, what is the highest currency in life? I think that the highest currency, one of the biggest currencies that we have in life that we simply just give away without even realizing it, is our attention. See, you might have a lot of money in your bank account, and that's great. Money is great. You might have a lot of items in your house. That's great. You might own a house. You might own some cars. That's great. But all of these assets are great. But your highest asset that nobody talks about is your consciousness and your attention. See, if you can't even control your attention, if your attention is going over here, going over there, you can't even control your intention and to simply decide on a purpose and to commit to a purpose and be self-amused from within. If you can't even control your attention and then from that space, you decide on a purpose that resonates for you, you're just going to be kind of living somebody else's purpose almost. You're going to be kind of you're going to be kind of like this character in somebody else's purpose. So there's that main character, you're helping somebody be main character while you're just a side character. You're the side character in your own movie, and that's not good. So if you want to write your movie the way that you want it, you need to take back your power, take back your attention. And this is, I'm obviously using, some terms here to be, explain it in a little bit more light way, but the truth is, in a little bit of more of a light way, but the truth is that this is a really serious topic, because, how many times in your day do you give away your attention without realizing it? Now look back at your day, look back at maybe yesterday or the day before. You're going through your day and you're giving away your attention without even realizing it. That's a huge problem, because we walk through our life and we don't even value our state of consciousness anymore, because we're so focused on pleasing somebody else that we forget who we really are. We forget our purpose. We forget that you get to decide your purpose from within. It's not always the case that you're going to have to look for a purpose out there and go find it out there in the world. You get to choose your purpose from within, because you get to create your purpose the way that you want to, because it's your life. You can't keep looking for something out there to save you, or somebody out there to save you, or something in the external to make decisions for you. It has to be you. You need to become the decider of your life again and stop allowing the external environment to define your identity and who you want to be. And so the third and final thing that I want to share with you in this video, is to understand that, yes, it is the case that you are not a product of your environment. It is also the case that you create your purpose from within. But simultaneously, what I want to conclude this video with is the understanding that, ultimately speaking, you kind of are a product of your environment. Now, what I mean by this, of course, in the first 20 years, like we already talked about, you are a product of your environment. But the case is that, if you don't have any consciousness and you have no consciousness or spaciousness between you and your thoughts, you're definitely just going to be a full product of your environment at that point. You're not going to, if you have no free will consciousness to decide your own identity, you're just going to be unconsciously playing out the patterns of whoever the 5 people you surround yourself with. And of course, you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. But if you have consciousness and awareness, you can start to do this process consciously. See, most people, this is happening and they don't even realize this is happening. They might disagree and be like, oh, no, I'm not like the 5 people that I hang out with. But it's like, even if they disagree, they still kind of are though, because literally everything in life is a give and take. Everything in life is simply a give and take. And so every single time that you're just in the presence of another person, you're giving and exchanging your character traits, your belief systems, your values, and all these different things are kind of bouncing back and forth. And what people don't realize is that you're exchanging wisdom, kind of, if you think about it anyway. That sounds a little bit of like a weird way to say it, but you're exchanging information. It's an information exchange, and it's a give and take, it's a balance. And so whoever you surround yourself with, you kind of will become like them in a way. And so with this being said, if you consciously do this, of course, the wise choice to make is to surround yourself, with the people that also you want to think like they want to think like you want to think like them. To surround yourself with people that also have the same belief systems and the same shared vision that you have. If you have, people in your life that you're surrounding yourself with that have the same shared vision that you have, that's going to allow you to really be more in alignment with who it is that you prefer to be. And then they're also going to be a support system, and you're going to be helping them be in alignment with who they want to be as well. So I think that we need to remember that simultaneously, yes, we are not a product of our environment. At the same time, we kind of are, whether consciously or unconsciously. And I wanted to say consciously, some people might do it unconsciously. Some people might be doing it the same way. But whether it's conscious or unconscious, it is the case that you are a product of your environment. So when you realize that you can have spaciousness between you and your thoughts, that's where you realize, wait, simultaneously, you're not a product of your environment, because you can choose to be who you want to be and separate yourself from your environment and then continue from there to make a choice. Now, from there, you can continue being a product of your environment and be okay with that and be complacent with that, or you can level up and continue to create more. And either ask the people around you to, step up and become more, or choose a different group of people, a different setting where you create something else in your life and you level up with them in a different way. Both are completely fine. But what I invite and encourage you is to not do it unconsciously. That's my invitation to conclude this video with. I'm so sorry to be all over the place here, but I really want to conclude this video with the raw truth that the one thing that I invite and encourage you to take away from this video, if you take one thing, is that to do it consciously. Because this whole process is going to be happening in your life, whether we realize it or not. So why not realize it? Why not realize how it's happening and understand it and be conscious of it and observe it and to learn about it and to really understand it at a level where you can now do this process and do it in a controlling fashion, not where you're controlling anything out there, because you have no more desire to control anything in the external world, but now you have more of a desire to control your own state of consciousness and your own state of being, to then be a self-amused person where now you're creating your state from within so that you can actually create what you want, not disrespect others, not dishonor others, but still be the person that you want to be, and understand that you don't need to be a product of your environment if you don't want to be. But if you want to be, do so consciously, do so in a humbling way, in a way where you're humble and you're aware and you're